This is what I typically like to see in a balance of how somebody has packaged themselves as a board director. And I call this the career trifecta. And quite honestly, this can be applied to any industry or even outside the board space. I want to see the correlation between the skill, the expertise, and what I call the proof or the certification areas of a board director. The skill is the know-how. This is an area that most board candidates have. They have the expertise. They've come up through the ranks in different organizations. They would hopefully have an deep understanding of strategy and governance. But when we start to get into the expertise area, specifically in the board vertical, we start to falter a little bit there. And then we move into certification. Certification is a fairly new thing in the board space. And old school board directors will say, well, I've been doing this for so long, I don't need the certification. What I view as new school board directors or board candidates, they will say, I want to do everything in my ability to make sure I understand what's changing in the board director space. How do I differentiate myself? How do I show that I view board directorship as a discipline, not just a hobby? This balance is something you really want to get across and make sure that you're developing the packaging of your board director candidacy and showing that your skill, your expertise, and your certification are coming together. Think about this. I could speak on this one topic for hours, but I think this is something that should be referenced multiple times by a board candidate to make sure that they're keeping some sort of balance in this area. Now, remember, the expertise is not going to always come. If you're a candidate who's never sat in the board before, that experience may not be there, but you have options of education and certification to help offset that. And you also have the option to join what I view as some easier boards to get on in the nonprofit space, as long as you are passionate about their mission and their values. I think you can build your way up from some of the nonprofit organizations to move more into the private and the public sector. So all of these pieces together with a few different ads, how are you viewed as an A-team board member? And I always laugh when I see this slide because I have the old TV show characters in the background of the A-team. But just in a summary, if we look first to the left, we see leadership, operational experience, and skill sets and experience. Those, of course, is our sphere of influence area we talked about. We then move into the planes of congruence alignment, making sure that you understand what is the additional character and approach that board wants to take. And then we talk about IQ, EQ, MQ, and TQ. And I'll quickly review what those are. IQ, I don't specifically mean that in the viewpoint of what is your IQ number in general. Are you 100, 120, 130? What I'm talking about is what is your level of intelligence in the expertise area that you're claiming for your board directorship focus area. I want to get a good feel for what is your experience and your expertise, all correlating to your IQ or your knowledge in that space. EQ, which is emotional intelligence, do you have that leadership presence? Are you able to operate in crisis as well as proactive mode? MQ, which is mindfulness intelligence. This is an amazing area if you get a chance to do some research in. There is a woman by the name of Linda Bjork who has been a pioneer in this space of mindfulness intelligence. And it's another area that I think is critical in forming and creating and developing really excellent board directors. And TQ, or team intelligence, and this is an area that has been pioneered by a woman by the name of Solange Charis, has done an amazing job on understanding when you get this group of people together, such as a board, how do they operate as a team? A board is not always a sum of its parts. It can be more or it can be less depending on how that team interacts. So this team intelligence or this team quotient is another amazing thing to be aware of as a board candidate and to be respectful of, and to maybe even ask some of the questions of how that particular board that you may be joining or that you're looking to join, how they operate as a team. And all of this is moving into this area of, are you being adept or are you adept at change? I can tell you that in decades ago, sitting on a board, there wasn't as much change as you see today. Even knowing in today's world that you want to address the strategy of an organization on a quarterly basis, a board has to be much more adept at change and has to be quicker in their decision making. And this is very important, something I look for in a board director candidate when I'm building boards. We touched a moment ago on that career trifecta on board certifications. There's two that I like to see people go for or have some sort of affiliation with. ACCD, or the American College of Corporate Directors, a great organization run by Clint Allen. certification courses, and you can move up different levels. And of course, the NACD, a much larger organization that also has different levels of certification and education. This, to me, when I see people affiliated and associated with these groups, I again know that they are board directors that are viewing their position as a discipline, not as a hobby, and I see they're taking their position seriously. And I'll mention two other areas of packaging yourself. And you know, when we talk about packaging yourself as a board director, this is somewhat of a new space in the last few years of even the marketing around is, you know, it used to be almost a taboo type of area to get into when you started to market yourself as a board director. That's really no longer the case. Companies are looking for board directors that have a presence, that even possibly have a heavy social media presence. And in packaging yourself, you want to think about this in a very disciplined way. And I like to think that you have at least one major, what I call here your main, usually corresponding to your main title or your main expertise area. But the area I've highlighted here are your three minors. And this is an extremely important concept. And it's something that I know, again, when I sit in front of a board candidate, I know that they are directly tying their experience to the active areas, such as the committees of a board. So I'm going to give a quick example of this, and I have what I use as my title and my heading currently. So my major is the corporate board director, executive leadership advisor, and technology consultant. But if I'm on a board, or I'm say on a nomination committee on a board, I don't really get a good feel on how you apply those to what I view as the action areas of a board, which are their committees. So in other words, how am I correlating my expertise areas into where the work truly gets done on a board, which is in their committee spaces? So what I like to see is a candidate that can correlate their expertise into specific naming convention that matches areas of what committees would be on those committees for those companies. So in my case, I can correlate back my three minors directly to three board committees. Strategic Planning Committee correlates to strategy. Governance correlates to the governance committee, and technology cybersecurity, of course, correlates to some of the hottest areas, especially in technology or cybersecurity today, which is a technology or a data protection or a cybersecurity committee. So the concept here again is to ensure that you are correlating your expertise areas to valuable areas of a board, and you do that by associating yourself to committee areas. That's how a board knows they're going to get value from you joining their particular group. And one last area in packaging yourself is, remember that a CV and a resume is not what you send for a board position. There's a whole separate structure of what they call board documents for this. So a job resume or a CV caters towards how you have managed, led, and potentially motivated teams or employees. A board document is a whole separate animal. It focuses on true leadership and triumphs and governance type accomplishments. It's a different level. It's almost like a higher level summary of what you've accomplished, but it's very much focused on strategy, governance, and leadership areas. Now, a few little insider bits of information on this: when I get things sent to me, or their bios or CVs sent to me, if somebody sends me their documentation for a board director position, and even the title of the file says CV or resume, I'm already on guard. I'm saying to myself, does this person know that when I pop open this particular document, or when I launch this document, that I'm actually looking for board documents? I'm not looking for a typical CV or a resume. So a few hints at this, or a few bits of detail and information. Number one, be absolutely sure that you understand the difference between a CV, resume, and a board document, and make sure that you're building out your information in the way that is correlated to what's expected for board documents. Number two, to try to get every leg up possible, don't force that feeling or that perception that I get, that I just mentioned, where even the file name is named wrong. Call the file your board documents. Put your name in it and call it your board documents. Do not put resume or CV in that area. If you're interested, there's a lot more detail on this, and I have a link to my article in the presentation, but you can find this article on my LinkedIn profile in my my published articles area. There's something there saying, or a title called "No, You Can't Submit a Resume or CV for this board seat." It goes into a little more detail of the structuring and what that document should look like. So I hope that's helpful.